Hello, this is Dorothy Smith. I'm a close to my heart independent consultant, and today I wanted to show you our card making workshop your way called Hugs for You. And those are the two cards that you make 6 of each, and these actually would be very good for Valentine's coming up in February, 2 months from now. I went ahead and made all the cuts, which are pretty simple cuts, pretty straightforward. And the only thing different is on the white cardstock I punched out with my thin cuts, my round thin cuts that have the stitched look from the leftover cardstock. So I'm just going to jump in and start doing the first kit, which has the diagonal strips on it. And the little heart there is done with what's called the rock and roll technique. And so I made a pile for each card. So I'll take one out and set the other aside, and the kit includes a stamp, the cardstock, the background and texture paper, and the envelopes and pre-folded cards. They're actually scored. So you get 12 of each. And you also get twine that comes with the kit. So what you do here is you take the strips and you set them on the diagonal, and you kind of use the opposite corners to touch the outside of the card down at the bottom and at the top, and that kind of gives you the angle. Well, actually it's the tips of the strip that are on the same side. So on the gray one, it's the left-hand corners. So you're going to actually line those up with the card, and once you get them lined up, then you've actually got the right diagonal. So it took me a card or so to figure that out. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put that one in place. And then the Sugar Plum cardstock wasn't cut in a full strip for whatever reason. And they just did the partial strips. So the reason is it gets covered by the sentiment cardstock. So I'm just lining up to cover the very corner of the card. I didn't want that little tip of the card to stick out. And then the opposite side of the gray cardstock are these cute dots, which how can I not like dots, right? So anyway, you line them up like that. I really like these diagonals. And then I went ahead and tomboed my white cardstock down on the saffron cardstock. And I will stamp we're going to be using saffron and sugar plum inks, but the sentiment itself is actually done in charcoal ink pad. And so, like I said, you get the full stamp set with the workshops your way. And so you've got good sentiments on it. You've got a heart. And it's not a huge stamp set, but it says what it needs to. So, and like I said, this is really good for using for Valentine's Day. So sending hugs and sending my love. I mean, that's just perfect for a Valentine's Day that isn't too ushy squishy kind of Valentine's. So I'm just inking up the sending my love sentiment with the charcoal ink, and I'm making sure that it is giving me a good impression. So I'm stamping it off camera on a piece of scrap paper. So you kind of put it at an angle, and there you go. It's great. Now they also have these little kind of arrowheads for putting kind of a arrowhead line along the bottom. So now the first time I did this, I kind of did see like that's not very good. And so I end up, that's not cool. So I ended up covering up this part with some gold shimmer trim that I had that I had cut previously on another project in a little thin, maybe 1/4 of an inch strip, and so that's going to hide that mess that I made down there. Normally I would not stick the cardstock down, so I would just flip the card over and cardstock over and do the reverse side, but since I had already glued it down, it was like, oh, too late. So the only hard problem with the shimmer is getting in between the clear pull-off backing and the self-stick part. I really love this shimmer trim. It just covers a wonder of evils and looks so beautiful doing it. So anyway, that's my little change to the card to hide my boo-boos. And then I'm going to go ahead and stick that down with my Tombow. And normally I'd be putting the twine around there, but I didn't think the twine, which is kind of rustic looking, would look great with the glittery cards shimmer trim. So I just didn't want to add the twine to that. It does what it's supposed to down there. So, and then you trim off the extra strips from flipping over the card so you can see very easily exactly where to cut. And then you've got a nice, neat looking diagonal look card. So that's kind of cool. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut out one of the hearts. I had stamped these previously when I was doing all the cutting. And like I said, this is called the rock and roll technique. So you get 2 or even 3 colors of ink, and you just partially put the ink on one part of the stamp and then turn the stamp around and use another color on there. But you want to be careful because you don't want to contaminate your ink pads. So and I'm going to pop the heart up with one of my little foam squares. So there's that one. So now I'm going to do the second one. I'm only going to make 2 of the 6 patterns on the video here, but I thought I really needed to show you how it's really supposed to look according to the instructions. Now let me just tell you that with any of our workshops, what really needs to be done is what you want to do with it. And so I am showing you how the card looks with the instructions. So that's my whole point. See, this here I figured out to line up the inside edges of that strip with the edge of the card, and then you've got the right angle. So you can make these cards look any way you want to, but you can also take these instructions and do the same exact layout using different papers. And so it'll still look as cool with different papers. So, you want to make sure and keep all your instructions so that you kind of have a portfolio of your own, kind of a portfolio of cards or layouts that you like the way they turned out, and so you want to copy them to use with, your leftover papers from, Christmas or summertime or, whatever. So here I am sending my love again, and now I will try that little arrowhead thing, and hopefully I'll get it right this time. So let's see. Okay, so far so good. First one down, second one down. Looking better already. So there we go. Now I'm putting the third one down. Okay. Fourth one. Just a little bit more to go. Ta-da! Okay, that's the way it's supposed to look, as opposed to covering it up with gold shimmer trim. And now I'm going to pull out the twine, and I will put the twine around this little cardstock sentiment. So this is a double wrap. Put it around twice. Get a little extra so you can you're just going to tie a knot on this one. The other one gets a bow, which is a little bit more awkward. I'm not going to lie, this is a little awkward for me to do. I feel like I've got all thumbs when I do this. So I'm just kind of holding the string in place, the twine in place with my finger. And then I cut the edges off. And there's a little piece of shimmer trim that got on there. So there we go, there's the twine. And then I'll go ahead and cut out another of the hearts that I stamped. And I just leave a little white edge around the outside of the stamped image, and I pretty much do that on anything that I'm cutting out. I leave just a little white edge. So you have a little fudge factor that you can, clean up your cut and get the edges a little bit smoother. So I'll go ahead and put another foam square down on the heart to pop it up. Here we go. Put it in place, and then put it over, put my Tombow on. Now if you wanted to, you could pop up the saffron piece. You could just put some dimensional elements on the back of it and pop it up if you wanted to. I just didn't want to for whatever reason. But it would look really nice with it being, the whole thing being popped up. So there's my second card looking the way it's supposed to look. Okay, so let me just clean up these little pieces here and go on to card number 2. So the card number 2 is really cute. Now this uses 2 of the thin cut circles that have the stitched look on the outside of them. So actually that's just like a little cut piece to make it look stitched. Now these are really, each card has, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces going onto the card, but it really didn't take long to cut out, and it really doesn't take long to put these together. So even though there's quite a few pieces on each card, it goes pretty quickly. So, which is really nice. You could get quite a few cards. You could get 12 cards done probably, maybe in 2.5 hours. It took me about 45 minutes to do all the cuts, including the thin cuts, and also including stamping those rock and roll hearts. So I think you could easily have these cards done in 2.5 hours. And then you've got 12 cards to send, and they can be used, like I said, for Valentine's or just sending hugs to somebody that you're thinking about. So I just cut 2 banner cuts by just angling them at about a 45-degree angle, and I got a little ink on my one saffron, but I'll cover it up with the twine. Funny how I always have to cover up some kind of a little boo-boo. Anyway, story of my life. Anywho, this one gets a bow, so you need a little bit more twine for it. So this is just a little awkward because now I've got 2 pieces that are kind of uneven. And like I said, I kind of feel like I've got all thumbs doing this twine. I'm not sure why, but I can't quite tie bows like I used to, and it's just coming all too loose. Toulouse-Lautrec, my friends. So we'll try it again. Here we go. Okay, and I'm putting the twine underneath the 2 pieces to kind of hold them together. So I kind of hold the tie area down with my fingernail, and then put a little, and then I got it a little bit too tight. And so I'm just going to scooch it up to kind of cover where a little bit of ink got on that saffron cardstock on my little banner. And so here goes my bow for what it's worth. There we go. Good enough. And then I'm going to just trim the edges. I'm going to try to make them go in the same direction. We'll see if they stay that way. Okay, that's cool. See, you can't really see that there's the little schmutz of ink. So now I'm going to stamp the Hugs for You. I'm going to put my stamp on the block. Take off the little arrowheads. So if you have a problem getting a stamp that's a little bit long straight on your block, you can just put it face down on your table and then pick it up on the flat side with your block. And it's kind of easy to get them straighter that way. So see, I put it down and then I kind of put the block on top of it and pick it up, and then it kind of comes straighter. And so now I'm just seasoning the sentiment on my hand, which just pulls off some extraneous pieces and maybe some oils that it came with. But it looks like that top piece needs to go over just a little bit because it's hanging over the end of the circle. So I'm just going to scooch it in a little bit. Getting what? Getting ink on your fingers, Dorothy. Okay, so I just want to hug you. Boom. Okay, so now the next piece is a blob. And it's a blob that you're going to, it's kind of like a watercolor wash. And so we're going to do it in Sugar Plum. And I'm going to season it here. And it's a big flat one, so it's going to be a little bit harder to get a nice, good impression. It's one thing to get words, that's no problem. But the bigger blobs are a little bit harder to get a good impression with. And in the instructions, they tell you to do a second generation inking on that. So that means you stamp it once on a scrap, and then the second time you stamp it is on your piece. And it's a very faint pink wash over the Hug You. I just want to hug you. So we're going to do that, and then the little circle gets, ta-da, right now. So I just want to hug you right now. And then it gets the little dots at the bottom. So I'm going to just use the other side of the block there, or the other end of the block, and stamp those in the Sugar Plum. So each little element has charcoal and sugar plum on it, which goes perfectly with their background. So totally coordinated, and you didn't have to think. That's the nice part, is all the coordination of colors is done for you, and you're given those in the kit. So the only thing you have to get are the ink pads if you don't have them. But that's what I like so much about these kits, is everything is all coordinated for you. And so you can make professional looking things even if you're not an artist. And so there's my card. And that one worked out good, except for the little ink on there. So I'm going to make another card to try to get my second one to be perfect as you can get. At least it won't have extra ink on it. We'll see. So I'm putting the background on with the dots. And normally you would put that background all the way across, but I lost my narration here, so I am going over this, so I may have a little glitch in there. So I am going ahead and putting the background on the Sugar Plum, and I'm going to make my little banners again. And any of the, just FYI, any of the items here I will have listed at the bottom of the video with links to go to my website. So I'm putting the first banner in place and cutting the saffron banner, hopefully without cutting my finger, and putting it on the tombow. I put it on the background because the tombow's wider than that 1/4 inch piece, but this time I didn't put it on ink, so hopefully there'll be one less ink blob on this particular one. And I'm leaving a long tail there, so I've got enough twine to make the bow, and then cutting a long tail at that end. And so I'm going to tie and go under both pieces so that the twine stays together, and I kind of hold it down with that top of my fingernail and then pull it and kind of get it in place. And this time the bow goes a little bit easier than the other bow did. So there we go. Now I just have to cut the little ends off and tighten it up a little bit. And there we've got it. So the next thing to do is the Hugs for You. So I'll go ahead and ink it up in the charcoal, and I just want to hug you. And then the next part is the Sugar Plum watercolor wash. I love these blobs that they come up with. They have a lot of different blobs to choose from, so they're really a nice little touch. So, and then I get the Right Now stamp and go ahead and put it on this small circle, and my little sugar plum dots. So there we go. Now I'm just going to put them in place. Now you could pop both of these circles up if you wanted to. I just didn't think about doing it at that moment, so I didn't pop them up, but that would be totally cute to go ahead and pop those circles up if you choose to. And you know, you don't have to follow instructions. You can go rogue. And so there we are. And I like the way it looks. I kind of like the change of pace of not having the background go all the way across. So there are my cards, and there is the other set of cards. And next I'm going to show you how I did the rock and roll technique, and I'm going to put it on my envelopes, because if you've seen me before, I usually decorate my envelope. So I'm going to use the saffron and the sugar plum just so that everything's matching, and that's the technique that I'm going to show you. So I'm going to do it on the envelope, and there's my heart, which came in the set. So I just pulled it off the background, and I'm putting ink on one side and ink on the other, and you can kind of see, you know, if it's the way you want it. And that's kind of, you know, a little rustic looking, but you know, this is so not has to be perfect. It just doesn't. And so there we go. You can do it half and half, or you can just do one little edge. And you know, you just want to be careful that you don't contaminate your ink in the other pad too much. So I kind of like that. It just adds a little something to the envelope to kind of let you know, okay, this is what is going to come on the inside. So there's all my little envelopes. And you know, so it's perfect. It's like I want to hug you, and there's the heart. And then of course it goes perfectly with this one because of the heart. So I really like having the decorated envelopes. And there they all are, and they all look different. And each one is okay in its own right, kind of like your kid. They're all different. Kids, they're all different, and each one is perfect in their own way. So there's my envelopes and my cards, and thanks for stopping by and watching. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching my video.
Subscribe to my YouTube channel and visit my blog at dotscrapbooking.com.